Hi everyone, my name is Khushi Maheshwari. I am a second year English honors student, and today through this video lecture I am going to talk about a short story by R.K. Narayan titled A Horse and Two Goats. First, let's talk about the man behind the story, R.K. Narayan. He is best known for his contribution to Indian literature with his short stories set in some fictional South Indian towns. He was born in 1906 in Madras. His full name was Rasipuram Krishnaswamy Iyer Narayan Swamy. There is humor and pity in his stories. In his career of 60 years, he won many awards and honors, including the A.C. Benson Medal from the Royal Society of Literature, the Padma Bhushan, and the Padma Vibhushan. He was also nominated to the Rajya Sabha. With gentle humor, Narayan explores the conflicts between rich and poor and between Indian and Western culture. The story is seen as a fine example of Narayan's dexterity in creating engaging characters and humorous dialogue. Let's move forward to the story now. The plot revolves around a villager named Muni who used to own huge herd of sheep and goats. He now has only two goats. Muni generally eats his breakfast before shaking his drumsticks from the tree in front of his house. Then, one day he asks for a drumstick sauce to his wife, who requests him to bring the goods from the local store for it on credit, which later on Muni fails to do. Furthermore, he is humiliated by his wife as a result of his failure. Then he takes his goats and moves to a place in the outskirts of the village beside the highway for grazing his goats. Muni sits under the ceramic horse statue to shield himself from the sun. He keeps an eye on the truck and notices a yellow station wagon approaching him. A red-faced American boards the wagon and starts asking as to the whereabouts of the nearest gas station. Muni mistook him for a police officer or a soldier who had arrived to inquire about a crime that had occurred in the surrounding village. Because of his khaki attire, he was misunderstood. But when he meets an American who is nice, he tells him his story. Both of them share their stories with one another. Muni describes how cheetahs and jackals robbed his animals, as well as how he has never attended school because only Brahmins were educated in those periods. He goes on to say that towards the end of the Kali Yuga, all the cunning humans will be abandoned. He also expresses his displeasure with the village leader who has accumulated a large sum of money. Murray also learns about the American's background as a coffee businessman. When there was no electricity, he was compelled to labor 4 hours. He was intrigued by the story and decided to travel to India, leaving his wife in Srinagar. Moving forward, we see that the American was fascinated by the statue of a horse, so he offered him 100 rupees to buy it. However, due to a misunderstanding, Muni took the deal for his goats. He had always wanted to sell his goats and use the money to open a shop, so he was overjoyed when the American agreed to buy the horse. Muni tells his wife about the dealing, but she could not believe his words and accused him of theft. Her suspicion gets stronger when the two goats return home just after that. Therefore, the story illustrates what happens when two people from different cultures cross paths. One is a New Yorker, while the other is Muni, who speaks only Tamil and has never left his rural credo. Coming to the themes of the story, the most important theme in the story, and in fact the central theme of Narayan's work, is the clash of cultures, specifically the clash of Indian and Western cultures. Using humor instead of anger, Narayan demonstrates just how far apart the two worlds are. The two cultures exist in the same time and space, but literally and metamorphically speak different languages. The two main characters in this story couldn't be more different. Muni is poor, rural, uneducated, Hindu, and brown. On the other hand, the American is wealthy, urban, educated, and probably Judeo Christian. As a good Hindu, Muni calmly accepts the hand that fate has dealt him, while the American is willing and able to take drastic and sudden action to change his life. Each man is quite ignorant of the other's way of life. Both Muni and red-faced foreigner struggle with preoccupations over possessing material objects. The foreigner struggles more with materialism as he is more prosperous and thus has more possessions than Muni. The foreigner is thus emblematic of the time and money-obsessed capitalist society of which he is a part. Although Muni himself is not prosperous and therefore does not have any possession, but he prides himself on the few possessions he does have, such as his goats. The foreigner attempts to assign a price to anything, and his assumption that Muni owns the statue on which he sits is not only condescending but materialistic. The true value and meaning of the statue and the traditions behind it are obscured by materialism. Ultimately, the Narayan presents a vision of the world much like the world of the Kali Yuga, in which striving for material possessions has blinded people to the value of spirituality. Later, there is the theme of wealth and poverty. Although they have a little in common, the most important way in which Muni and American differ is their respective level of wealth. The writer takes great pain in the opening of the story to show how desperately poor Muni is and to emphasize that even in his time of prosperity, his standard of living was still greatly below that of most Americans. The American takes for granted his relative wealth and seems to be unaware of the difference between Muni and himself. Throughout, we see that the language is playing an important role too. The miscommunication happened because Muni was uneducated and belongs to the lower caste, which did not allow him to receive knowledge and education in his early years. Thus, there is a subtle reference to a theme of knowledge and ignorance in the story too. That's all for today. I hope you enjoy the video and understand all the covered points. Thank you, and I'll see you again in the next lecture.